Good evening, guys, and welcome to this new episode. As anticipated, we're going to host one of our dearest friends, Paolo.
Good evening. Thank you very much to both Alessandro for inviting me for the fifth episode of Aperi Politics.
Don't worry, we just forced you and kidnapped you. So, today we're going to talk about jobs, specifically from the perspective of a master's degree student, but obviously, it is applicable to every kind of student.
Well, let's get right into it.
So, to start with, Paolo, introduce yourself and tell us your experience.
Sure. My name is Paolo Coltrera. I am a former uni classmate of both Alessandro. And concurrently, I'm pursuing a master in economics at the University of Amsterdam. And I have just recently, at the end of August, finished my, let's call it, first real internship experience within Philips. I've been working in the group sustainability as a sustainability analyst. I've been supporting manufacturing sites in reducing their material footprint and switching to circular solutions um, and so on and so forth. In my free time, I love to play chess and to practice calisthenics. And yeah, that's it for me.
Well, tell us about your experience managing your time as a uni student and at the same time starting the internship, as you said.
Yeah. Well, time management is actually um, one of the easiest things that you might end up doing, especially if you're picking up only one full-time job. Because in a certain sense, working 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, it depends on when you choose to start working, um, grants you free evenings and free weekends. I mean, probably as students, we have often felt like we have never studied enough, we're never prepared enough. And by the time that we are done with studying and we are aware of the fact that we still need to prepare some new topics, it never feels like we are taking some time to rest. Whereas when you're working, you know that at 5 p.m., whatever is happening, you're going to be at home. So um, it, in a certain way, this regularity grants you much better time management and allows you to do some more stuff that, for example, I've never done for the year I've been living there. I've started cycling immediately after work. I've started cooking, inventing new recipes. I gave more time to my passions. So, yeah, of course.
Paolo, I have a question for you. Imagine you're talking to your younger self, right? Because we all heard our parents telling us, enjoy studying, enjoy school as much as you can, because then when you will start working, it's going to be horrible. Now, looking back at that statement, and say you were the parent of yourself, would you tell your younger self it's going to get better when you work or not? Because the way you're describing it to me, it seems like it's better to work rather than to study.
um, well, as everything, it comes with pros and cons. You definitely have much more disposable income and freedom, I would say, especially when it is an entry level position, such that you have limited tasks and responsibilities. But at the end of the day, having somebody such as your parents to whom rely on and really where your failure is not gonna end up not losing your job, but simply having a bad grade. So, it depends on which are your priorities, which are the goals. Also, depends a lot on your age, because there's one moment for um, stop playing and others for instead taking your time and relax. What do you think instead?
I think it's a lot of cultural shock for many of us Italians. From what I understood, I was reading a book, which was a gift by Yale, by Federico Rampini, on America and all things America, actually. And I found out how Americans have a working culture which is much more established than us Italians. We Italians are used to staying at home with our parents to a longer degree than the American counterparts. In fact, the American counterparts start working very early. They have this culture of understanding income, money, etc. And I wonder if that's more effective than staying home, because the counter attack, if you will, to this is that Italians, on average, are probably more prepared than Americans. We all know the American who doesn't know where Iran is and points to Australia and so on and so forth, right? So I wonder which of the culture. Actually, let me ask you, which of these two cultures would you pick?
I wouldn't say that picking one of the two is necessarily the answer to the question, because, for example, in general, when you want to understand how to spend your time when it comes to working,
Mm-hmm.
to have an understanding on how the workplace runs and yourself. So spending more time working, of course, at earlier ages can maybe incentivize, disincentivize work, can steer you in the right direction. But at the same time, from what it is my experience, there is no real age when it is more convenient to start working or, let's say, stop studying, you know? Very hardly the knowledge that you will acquire during your studies will be applicable in your job, unless, of course, you are dealing with engineering, law, and so on and so forth. All those disciplines which require also technical knowledge, and it is rather more praised by an employer, your ability to adapt to ever evolving situations, which on a workplace tend to be much more practical than theoretical as in the university.
Yeah, if I'm intervening, I totally agree with you about what you're saying about the things that it is more practical, and I especially agree with you on the fact that there's not a specific age to start looking for a job, to start working effectively, because we all know that every day we are scared about our future. We are obviously the future is uncertain. We don't know what our job will be, where we'll be in 20 years, and so on and so forth. But I think it is really important to understand that work comes for each person at different stages, at different times during their lives, and one just have to like to benefit, to take advantage of it when the opportunity comes in front of you. And just to take back what Ale said before about different cultures, it is funny because during my, I think it was Spanish C1 exam, I had to describe a graph which was precisely about this when students or young people go out from their houses, from their family houses to work or to be independent. And actually, I think Italy, Spain, and the Balkan countries, not the Balkan, yeah, the Balkan countries, sorry, are the one where young people leave their houses the latest, meaning that, for example, in Nordic countries or also in Germany, in France, young students decide to move outside their family house to work way earlier than like in Italy, Spain, or Balkan countries. So I think it's
Mm-hmm.
pretty common, not just in the United States. And I think it is clear an advantage to me, since, okay, you have still the reliability of your family, because even if you go live alone, it doesn't mean that your family does not back you. But being alone already at early stages, you start understanding how to live your independence, how to benefit from your freedom, and if you start working already, you also have more time to build your dreams career, and so on and so forth. So yeah.
Right. I just want to ask a question to Paolo. If and then we can move on to the next section. If I am a politics student versus I am a business student, do you think the approach to finding a job and more importantly finding a balance between work and life is different, or you think it's a standardized procedure for all types of students, let's say?
I think that the selection procedure and the time required largely depends on which is going to be the responsibilities you will cover. And then, of course, when it comes to, let's say, the selection method for the new employee, that's vary as well. There's large variability as well. I can expect some kind of differences between enrolling or let's say looking for a job position within more business, private environment rather than the
Hmm.
public sector. But I do not really have enough experience in either to to address your question.
Yeah, because sorry to interrupt, because I noticed for internships like at NATO and the EU and I don't know, UN, there's emphasis on certain kind of skills that I almost would argue kind of anyone can have if you um, break it down to it. It's research, analytical skills, etc. However, I've seen the business sides, for example, what you're doing, and honestly, sometimes not even what you're doing actually. Sometimes the ones about statistics and economics and finance are so much more complicated and perhaps require a lot more time to study because it's much more theoretical in the sense that you have to know it, and maybe it's granted that you have to know it. That's what I've seen. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, yeah, I agree with you, Adam. I think now we can move to the next section, which is more like technical with regards to this first one. So, Paolo, would you tell us some tips and also your personal experience on how to find a job as a student, as a young person? So, where you can look at them, what CV tips you have, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Well, referring now my personal experience as well as advices from other people. There are quite some streams to have access to different job opportunities. The most common one are, of course, platforms for professionals, such as LinkedIn, Glassdoor's job teasers, and so on and so forth. Of course, also implementing some advanced method for research. You can also look for jobs which completely fit your desire and your future prospects. Another thing which is extremely useful when you, rather than targeting a job position, you're targeting a company, is looking at the website and the career portal of the company itself. And some time, which flows directly into the third method, I would self-candidate myself, as I have did indeed, speaking to the hiring manager itself. And then there are, of course, all different second channels, including, let's say, the career services provided by the university, or there are professionals whose job is to match you with an employer, and these are known as career coaching, even if career coaches, of course, offer different services, and including, for example, helping you in understanding in which business, in which sector you can um, further sell your service.
Sure. And before you tell us something about the CV, how to formulate it, and so on and so forth, do you think LinkedIn is really useful to find a job? Meaning, we always hear, and you also said it is pretty important to see the jobs the vacancies on LinkedIn. But have you heard about someone who has really found a job only by applying on LinkedIn?
I never heard, so I sort of implicitly agree with Ali if he's saying that it's not that useful.
Well, yes, myself.
Oh, nice.
It it was an internship, but still, started working for Philips, applying through LinkedIn, and have heard actually lots of people who did the same, applying in different countries and for different job positions. But well, of course, it's much easier sometimes when you are referred by somebody within the company, and there are, of course, other channels which in a way hinder competition, and which do not necessarily require you to go through the main job platform described to have access to, let's say, prestigious positions.
Mm.
If there is something that in my experience is the one with the highest success rate for application, is being referred from somebody working within the company.
Sorry if I beat a dead horse, but I think once again I'm seeing a divide between the I call it business world for lack of a better word, but I think it's clear what I'm trying to say. Let's say when you try to
Private
work
sector.
for a company versus
Mhm.
a political institution, right? Um, Again, out of all my friends, I didn't hear anyone who through specifically LinkedIn found a job and they had to go on the websites that are appropriate. But I actually agree with you now that I think about it. If you're trying to work for a company, LinkedIn is much more of a booster. Would you agree with this take or no?
I have never applied for companies working in the public sector, so I
Hmm.
wouldn't know.
Okay. What about the CV then?
The CV is actually an interesting topic because every single employer, if reading it at all, it's it will read it in something like 7, 8 seconds. So
Wow.
you have to you really yeah they're not gonna pay attention to every single detail in the CV, which is why you have to structure it in a way that the most important things, the name of the university, the company you worked for, the most remarkable achievements you have done throughout your life, must be easily viewable from the HR employee. And some tips which have completely changed actually my response rate uh, when looking for jobs back in November. It was condensing the resume in one page and including a section under the title of volunteering and leadership, where I'm adding all the extracurricular activities that I've been performing um, and describing my will and my perseverance and my personality outside of the academic environment,
Mm-hmm.
and more on a little bit on a detail would be starting every sentence with a past tense verb because it gives whomever is reading a sense of what exactly you have been doing
Mm-hmm.
and not a general idea of what the company does of and so on and so forth. So
Yeah.
do you guys have ever heard of any useful tips also for myself?
I mean, to do my CV, basically I've done it based on your tips, so I think you're the best in this call for that.
Spoiler, me too.
Yeah, maybe the one thing I could say is that, as you said, it's important to be concise, to put all the important information, maybe to do the CV just in one page when you're talking about corporates, so private companies. But I've heard that when you instead are like applying for public organizations, international organizations, so on, 2 pages or even three, it is still good if you obviously have done so much to say in 3 pages, like also, for example, putting the articles or publications you have done. So in the diplomatic sector, public diplomatic sector, it is good also to go more than 1 page. And yeah, I think this is what I could say. Witness is, for example, the Europass. You know that when you do the Europass, the European Parliament, especially for the Schuman traineeship, but also the Commission, I think, and the others accept the CV, which is 6 to 7 pages, because the Europass makes it with a format which is way longer. So as I was saying, it depends what you're applying for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
It
agree.
goes back to that.
Actually, this makes me remind of the fact that it depends on whom you are applying to which company you're applying to. Because I remember that at the beginning I had interest in different sectors. I wanted to work in supply chain, in sustainability, in strategy, as a consultant. And I remember being advised by a mentor of mine, a former Arthur Digital consultant, to have 3, 4 CVs and 3, 4 no those declaration letter. I do not recall their name. The one that you not recommendation letter,
Reference.
uh,
Reference.
reference. No, neither reference letters.
Cover.
Those cover letter. Fantastic. We found the
Okay.
name.
Ah, yeah.
3, 4 cover letters, each one tailored for each of the type of the specific type of job you're applying to.
Yeah, that's actually a great advice. So now we can move to the last question. Sorry, section. And let me start with something actually pretty basic, but perhaps it could result as very useful. If you could bank on something in terms of personal characteristics, which one do you think would be the most suitable? Would it be determination? Would it be coldness? So like you're not very shy and you're professional? Would it be communication skills? What are something that are transversal?
Well, one thing that I would say is largely applicable in every field is being likable. I've had the, let's say, the pleasure to notice that it is more important to be likable to the person you're working with rather than being actually good at your job.
Well,
This is
that's not
a,
good news.
but it's true. And for everything else, I think most of the things are job specific. Because if you want to be a
Okay.
strategy consultant, you definitely have to be creative. Creativity, persistency, being hard worker are all characteristics which are praised. But if you're an accountant, I don't know if you will need them.
Yeah,
What do you think?
I think this, okay, obviously, you can find the anecdotal example to find to counter me, but I would say, generally speaking, communication skills are probably top three, if not the most important um, set of skills or personal characteristics that you can have. Because in any case, you're going to talk to, so let's say if your job is based on talking with people, obviously communication skills is important. But even if your job is based on staying on a computer, in order to get to the job in the first place, you need to talk to the employer. So independently, I think being able to be clear, precise, and going straight to the point in terms of dialoguing is important. I think also listening to others is very important, and that's something that again is for any kind of job because most jobs are with other people for the most part. So I
Yeah,
think
sorry
yeah,
to interrupt you. I agree on this, especially the communication part, which I think it is not only important the verbal communication, but also the written communication, especially talking about cover letters. You see that, and I've just witnessed like a call where they explained how to apply and so on and so forth. I will not disclose the organization, not to risk my application, but so, and the cover letter is so important because in the case of the application I want to do right now, uh, I have seen they've said that there are like 6,500 people more or less to apply, and they take only 50 of them. And already the first like selection process is based only basically on the cover letter or your motivation statement for a specific department. So I think also written communication is crucial.
I agree with you, Alessandro, but often when it comes to selecting a new candidate, of removing, let's say, um, not talented enough candidates for a job position, you will be required to do an assessment test and an interview. So, yes, of course, cover letter and resume have their weight, but there are fields and there are certain job position you might apply for, especially in the business of finance, let's call it like this, where to the assessment test you are required to perform and achieve certain numbers, certain scores in order to be selected to further proceed in the future interview rounds. So, yes, it's the role of the cover letter and the resume are important, but let's not overestimate this.
Yeah, I agree on that. So, Paolo, to wrap it up, what are three actionable things a student can do?
Well, first thing first, I would say ask to your friends, your parents, and whomever is expert on the topic. It's always good to have somebody providing guidance when moving the first steps in a new subject or in a new topic. Then definitely discover what you like and what kind of job and job prospects fits your personality and goals. Because then, as the old saying states, It's going to feel like you're never going to be working for a single day. And then don't fall for the same mistakes that I did. Don't be scared for the future. Entering in the job market may seem challenging and scary, but there's nothing to fear for.
Yeah, I agree. And if I can add, essentially, you have to be chill, take your time, obviously not too much, because unfortunately, this is a very competitive world. But in general, take your time, do the right things, and be persistent.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, finding the first job, managing your time might be harder than actually working, but I'm sure everyone in our audience can make it with enough due diligence.
And with that said, thank you for listening. Remember to follow us on our Instagram and LinkedIn, Network Studenti Sicurezza Italiani, NSSI, on YouTube and on our podcast profiles, which are Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Amazon Music.
See you
See you
guys.
See you
guys.
guys.